Today, folks, we are witnessing the most pivotal phase of Aduro Clean Technologies history, as I was recently enlightened thanks to the Independent Investor channel and the Marioz channel for not only visiting Aduro's operations, but giving us full clerical insight into the board of directors. I sat through hours of footage to not only learn about their revenue base, but the commissioning of their R2 plastic reactor. Thanks to the interview with the CEO, Ofer, we're going to be getting some insight from the Chief Financial Officer, Mena, who actually talks about some of the future expected revenues and their forefronted plan, and more importantly, Dr. Anil, the gentleman who's actually working on the ground floor as the Chief Scientific Officer. So I've broken all this footage down to show you what this company looks like from the inside of the brilliant minds bringing this together to solve this plastic problem that society is plagued with. And if you want to learn more about this, more impressively, and something so cool, is they're actually going to be on the Advancement series hosted by Ted Danson on Amazon Prime. I think that's actually releasing this week. So this is something that you can actually check out while you're sitting at home if you want to be entertained by the future of how we're going to deal with waste plastics and basically the upgrading of renewable fuels. So on that note, let's get into this by first and foremost listening to the Chief Scientific Officer.
I have been with Aduro for 10 years. So what we have developed is what we call is a platform technology. So hydrochemolytic technology is not just for plastic, it's a platform technology. And so far we have explored three areas of its application. One is heavy oil or asphaltenes upgrading. The second area is renewable fuels using what we call is waste like yellow grease or brown grease from the restaurants or the grease traps. And then the third technology is plastic upcycling. So in case of plastic upcycling, what we have demonstrated is this technology works in the batch system. We have proven the chemistry. We have found out the blanket conditions. What we have also studied is like effect of different contaminants. So in case of contaminants, what we are looking at is like whether the contaminants affects the process chemistry, is it process design, and where does it end up? So that's what we are looking at, and we are making like a complete array of different contaminants, because contaminants itself are very broad. Like they could be intrinsic, which means already present in the plastic while making different pellets or maybe products. Then extrinsic contaminants could be like ketchup bottles where you have like residual food, oil or other materials. So what we are looking at is like taking each and every component and analyzing it, how does it affect? And we are looking at the three criteria, where does it fit?
Now, Anil, the Chief Scientific Officer, just gave us some clerical insight into their R2 plastic reactor, because that was the big news. They recently commissioned it, and that is part of their patented hydrochemolytic plastic upcycling, or their HPU, turning those waste plastics into renewable fuels. And I really want to point out that this technology allows them to recycle up to 4 types of plastics, where their competitors like PureCycle can only recycle 1 type of plastic. Yet PureCycle's market cap is trading in the $1 billion range, and Aduro is only trading for about 50 to 60 million in its market cap, and yet we're only talking about one aspect, one vertical of Aduro Clean Technologies capabilities with these kind of reactors, because they can obviously do the hydrochemolytic bitumen upgrading heavy crude into lighter crude, and they also have upgrading renewable oils into renewable diesels. These are like $100 billion combined verticals, but we're going to get a little bit more insight because the R2 plastic reactor is obviously going to help change the plastic problem that is just plaguing society. So let's listen to the Chief Executive Officer, Ofer, who gives some insight into what he thinks about this commissioning.
Why is R2 important for the company and also for potential clients?
It's really the turning point where you are moving from you start moving material continuously. From that turning point in their mind is the place where you could scale up. But the optimism that we all share is that we're doing it in a lower severity, lower conditions, with multiple ways to do it. And so we think that this should be successful, highly successful. On the other hand, in the eyes of the investors, in the eyes of companies, they do need to see it moving forward as a transitional, to something that you can scale up. And from my perspective, the moment that you're doing it in continuous, that is why it's so important for everyone, and of course for us as well.
Like, how long does the commissioning process usually take?
So, of course, we didn't report it. We only report it now, but the commissioning process starts several weeks ago. When we finish assembly it, we test the system to pressure, and we test the system to different certification that we need to do. And now when we wire the system, We are now looking for all the faults that can be, and there are faults sometimes that you find, some connection and mismanagement of heat transfer and all kind of an issues. So what we're doing now is learning maybe the system, how to really operate it. So when we will run hydrocarbons, we will do it as smooth as possible, but also just noted that this is a phase where we learn how this machine is operate, right? So when we do that, we gain a lot of information going forward in our thinking. What needs to be considered? What needs to be thinking? How do we need to improve our designs? You know, if you just even, you know, small operation of you clean the reactor, you don't clean the reactor. What is happening in the process of that? So all of this is moving forward as data towards the commercialization. Every step is so important. So I know the investors are locked up on the commissioning, but this is all a bundle of information that we need to use to improve in a continuous way going forward.
Now, if there was one way I had to describe what Aduro's doing here, it's methodical. They've been very slowly building this process out over a decade, getting to this point of commissioning where now they're just going to test, tweak, figure out all the finer details. So once they start handing it off to clients, they know exactly what they're dealing with. And these are easy to scale reactors, which makes it even more beautiful as we start to listen to the chief financial officer, who's going to kind of break down the numbers, the expectations, and kind of what we could just see moving forward from what we can see here on the hydrochemolytic plastic upcycling machine, from licensing and obviously building out their own train reactors. So take a listen.
The ultimate goal is for you to build and expand commercial units with partners at 25 tons per day and expand them. How will you be able to do multi-unit of these, given the time it takes to build each commercial unit, given that it takes over a year to build each commercial unit?
I think the premise here is a little bit inaccurate. We are targeting a licensing model, right? We're working with partners that have the capabilities, either in the funding, the engineering, the build out, the location. They have everything they need to build these commercial units at scales that are 50, 100-fold to 25 tons per day, right? So yes, we have the ability to start small because we do want to work with smaller companies, but we're also discussing with companies that will have the need and capacity that is multiple folds our starting point of 20 tons per day, 25 tons per day. So the only issue or the only areas of concern, which we're not tremendously concerned of because we're working around them, is to get to the semi-commercial and to, of course, we might be looking to doing our first commercial unit on our own or with a partner or maybe several partners. Once we have the design and the operational commercial unit up and running, let's say for several months, we're up to replication mode, right? We have everything we need to hand off to a potential customer and for them to build out this equipment in a very timely basis, right? So that's going to come with sourcing for the material, exact specs, environmental analysis, potential financing and funding for the equipment. You know, all of that is going to be key things to do for the first commercial unit. And we acknowledge that this is not going to be an easy job, but we're 100% equipped to do that.
When do you expect to start generating revenue from client testing programs? And what is the average size of such revenue per feedstock or per client?
Great question, Marius. And I'll take a first stab at this. Ultimately, revenue is starting as we speak, right? So we expect the more recent financial statements coming out end of April to reflect some of that revenue. We've announced, of course, Shell Game Changer. We've announced Prospera. We've made the strategic decision to postpone charging or invoicing Prospera. We could have done that a lot earlier, but we made the decision to wait until R2 bitumen is up and running. We're very careful to have a great relationship with every single customer we have, right? So it's not about just how fast can we bring in, start invoicing these customers. We want to build a long-term relationship. Our end goal is to build a commercial pipeline, right? So it's very important for us to have a great relationship from the get-go. So straight answer, revenue is trickling in as we speak. In terms of range, I want to give you a ballpark figure. Ultimately, it's anywhere between $125,000 to $300,000 per potential customer or per engagement. Now, that is a ballpark. If I wanted to say, probably the majority would fit in there, but there are going to be some outliers. potential few cases where there's going to be an arrangement with a potential stakeholder that has multiples of that upper range.
At this point, folks, I feel like this was a very informative video, and I appreciate all the creators and all the people that brought this content together at this very pivotal phase for Aduro. And at this point, I'll pass the question off to you. I'd love to know what you think about this in that comment section below. And on that note, consider subscribing, because as news comes down the wire, I, of course, will continue to update you here.